help yourself bow straight and to stay in the sweet spot, we want to do a couple of things. First, grab your Sharpie marker, clean off your strings to make sure you don't have any rosin on them. And then what I want you to do is, if you are younger, get your parent to help you. But if you're of an age old enough to use a Sharpie, grab the Sharpie, do not draw on the violin. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make a small mark above the F-hole circle on the string. Make sure you're marking on the string. So I'm gonna make a mark above the F-hole circle on the G string on my violin right here. I'm gonna continue across and make a black mark on each string. I want you to wait at least 1 minute after you've done this before putting your bow on the instrument. You see how I made marks across? They're pretty straight. They may not be perfectly straight, but they're pretty close. Let's straighten those out. I'll make them a little bit longer. I haven't done it sideways like that before. Okay, so I've got some pretty straight marks there that I can see, and it's funny because it just looks like the string almost disappears where those black marks are, but you're going to be able to see that. If you have a hard time seeing it, I find that a red Sharpie shows up really well. Once your Sharpie mark has dried, you're ready to try placing your bow. You can measure the distance halfway between the tip and the stick and put a little sticker on your bow or a small pencil mark right at the midway point. Hold your violin on its shoulder and set your bow on the E string in the middle, right on the mark that you made. This mark is in the sweet spot. It's the best sounding spot and the easiest place to sound great on the violin. So we want to set a straight bow right there. And then what we want to do is we want to practice moving the bow to the A string. To get to the A string, I lift both the wrist and elbow. To get to the D string, I lift them again. Between the D and A, those are the hardest to hit just one string on. So practice rocking back and forth, and then go up pretty high for the G. Practice each string and make sure that your bow is equally as close to the bridge on the G as it is to the E. If you're further away on one or the other, if you're closer on the E, further away on the G, your bow is probably crooked and your elbow is probably back too far. Make your square, and then practice bowing down and up. Remember, before you do this, tilt your bow forward, bow from the elbow, down and up. You're gonna know that you've gotten a good sound if you have your smiley thumb, and then you also pronate. That means slightly tilt forward your index finger. That's going to make the stick and hair come ever so slightly closer together. We want to get that pressure into the string. And we want to do that just by turning that index finger, not by pressing with your arm. Remember, your arm is going to be nice and loose and weighted down. So set your violin up and weight down your arm. Twist slightly between the thumb and index finger until the stick and hair come closer together. Now what most people do right off the bat is they pull slow and they say, oh no, I pressed too hard. That's not quite correct. You need to pull quickly from the elbow while having a small amount of pressure. If you have too much pressure, it won't sound great. Just have a small amount of pressure and pull quickly. The violin sounds best if the stick is tilted away from you slightly, not all the way, just 45-degree angle. And you have a small amount of pressure, and then we pull nice and quickly. When you pull to the right, that's a down bow. And when you pull to the left, that's an up bow. And it's a little counterintuitive because if you're on the G string and you pull to the right, that's a down bow, and if you go to the left, that's an up bow, even though the direction seems a little bit different. The first thing you want to do on the bow is practice smooth strokes, keeping it right above the sweet spot. You want to stare at your bow and control it, keep it right in that spot, and you want to do smooth, quick strokes. These strokes are called détachés. They're disconnected. We start with those strokes when we first learn to play our fingers, because it makes it easier to sync our fingers up with our bow strokes. But they make you sound more beginning because the notes are disconnected. It would be like singing and taking a breath between each syllable that you sing. So in order to sound more advanced, what we want to do is make a legato or connected bow stroke like this. The trick is to never let your elbow peek out all the way. Keep it going, and as you get towards the end of the stroke, come back up. That'll help you get a smoother stroke after you've started playing a few pieces. Practice bowing each string 4 times. 1, 2, ready, E. Lift your wrist and elbow up together to the A string. Lift your elbow and wrist up together to the D string. And all the way to the G. Be careful that you aren't too low on the E or too high on the G. You want to just barely get off of the next string. Most people hit double strings on D or A. Anytime you have an issue or a technique mistake, you just want to slow down and practice whatever the issue is all by itself a few times. So if you're having a hard time playing the D and A separate, you can practice just those 2 strings by setting your bow just on the A, moving it to hit the D and A both, and then just the D. Back to both, only A, and then try bowing the A. If you accidentally hit the D string, you can lower your elbow and wrist slightly to get off of the D. So if I'm on both, if I lower my wrist and elbow, I get to just the A. If I want to get to the D, I raise my wrist and elbow. And you can practice bowing between the A